Okay, so we're recording. Good evening. Today is the 26th of January, and this is LNM 4, the evening section. And today we're going to do augmented 6 chords. You may have seen that I already sent from the morning class. I sent you the homework assignment, which is due next Tuesday, just some time before class, you know. Then we'll go through all those examples, and you can see how much of that stuck. So we're basically, there are 4 augmented 6 chords, and they basically all behave the same way. They're spelled differently and they sound different. But as I said in the morning class, and you could review that class on YouTube. I think that might be a good idea, because sometimes I'm a little more specific in one or the other section. So I think if you review the opposite section, then you will have a very, very good grasp on what's going on in terms of the background. Sometimes I go a little more into the details, and sometimes I sort of talk a little bit more about the background. And occasionally I would be playing a lot more in one class than another. So I think between the 2 classes, since they're recorded, we can all enjoy these different aspects of it. And the wonderful thing about recordings is that you can just fast forward. Obviously, if there's a section that you don't really need or you review later, you can just do that. So today, simply just a very nuts and bolty presentation on the spelling of the 2 chords that we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with the Italian augmented 6 chord and the French augmented 6 chord. As I said, just a moment ago, they are all really the same. They function the same way, and they all have a lot more in common than they are different. I mean, so they're a lot more similar than different. That's what I mean to say. And they are all predominants, and they all do the same as all predominants do. They drive to the cadence. In the case of the augmented 6 chord, it very, very, very often goes to the cadential 6/4 chord. But we won't do that right now. Right now, I'm really just concerned about being able to spell these things, and that's really not such a big deal. I'm going to review just a little bit of what we did last time, and that is to write up what you already have. I sent it to you earlier today in terms of scale degrees. So we have flat 6 in. So this is the Italian augmented 6 chord, abbreviated IT, 6 plus. You probably remember the plus sign for augmented triads, you know, the major third and major third kind of triad. So it's a universal sign for augmented. And in this case, the outer voice interval, I'll break it down in a little bit, spells an augmented 6th, and that's why they're called augmented 6 chords. So the bass has flat 6, the tenor, scale degree 1, the alto, also scale degree 1, and the soprano has the raised 4th scale degree. We just abbreviated to say sharp 4. And but just remember that they're not always going to be spelled with a sharp, but it's the 4th scale degree in whatever key you're in that has been raised by a half step. So let's take an example. Let's get this plucked up in, let's say, in D major, for instance. Well, in terms of the Italian augmented 6 chord, it's actually pretty easy. Sorry, I'm in a new place to teach. So I'm just getting used to the setup here. It's actually pretty easy because the inner voices here, we can automatically plug in at D, which is scale degree 1, obviously. And we're going to do the same here. So that's going to be the same note in the inner voice. You see scale degree 1 here, and I'm making sure that I just sort of refer to the scale degree and then straight out in the same register. You won't always see that, but this is like a training wheel, so to speak, that I'm writing it up like this. Pretty soon we're not going to need that very much. So let's deal with the bass now. And as you can see, if we have scale degree 4 here, it's raised 4. And here is lowered 6. We won't worry too much about that. We'll just say scale degree 4. and it's scale degree 6. And you can very quickly see that there's a number missing here. So in order to navigate how to find 4 and how to find 6, it's most convenient to use scale degree 5. And the fact that this one is sharp, we'll just figure out what that actually means in practice. But scale degree 5 is a very, very good navigation point because it's the same in major and minor. And usually it is not very difficult to figure out what scale degree 5 is. In the key of D, so just bear this in mind, right? You can always, I'll put it up here because I'm going to need the board here. So there's 4, 5, and 6. And yes, they're altered, these ones here. Scale degree 4 is altered because it's been raised. And scale degree 5 is the navigation point, right? It's not, forget about the if. But to find scale degree 5 in the key of D, you simply just count up 5 steps from D. So that would be D, E, I know it's F sharp, and then G, and then A. So A is scale degree 5 in this key. In the key of D, scale degree 5 is A. So flat 6 is basically a half step up from A. Yeah? And that would be, anyone? I'll show you how. It's not A sharp, but it's the same pitch as A sharp, but it has to be spelled with the next letter name up. So flat 6 is B flat. Very simple. I'm going to put B flat down here. I could also put it up here, but that, you know, let's just separate them a little bit. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. So B flat is in the bass. B and D are the inner voices. And now that's how to find flat 6. Very easy. Well, we're simply just going to spend the time today doing that so you know exactly what you're going to be doing for your homework. Similarly, sharp 4 would be not a half step up from A, but a half step down from A. And not A flat, because that will be flat 5. You're looking for sharp 4, so it has to be the next letter name down from A. That will be G, but since G is a whole step away from A, then it's G sharp. Yeah? Like that. Easy peasy, right? Any questions so far?
No, Professor.
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Right now, I'm not interested in the big picture. I talked about that last time we met. Some of you may not have been there, but I mean, you can review that class too. I talked about that very, very often. The big picture is easy to understand. I liken it very often to, you know, viewing the image on a TV screen. That when we zoom away from the TV screen, we can very clearly see the image. We can't see the little dots that comprise that image, and we're not really concerned about what color they are, et cetera, et cetera. If we move closer to the screen, we'll see a lot of dots. We won't necessarily see the image, but we'll see all the technicality of it. And sometimes, so in other words, if we're just watching the screen, it's not difficult to understand the image that we're watching there. But in fact, all of the images are formed by a few colors. I can't remember how many they are, but they're like 4 or 5 different colors: yellow, blue, green, red, etc. And all the different colors that we see on a color TV are sort of amalgams, sort of compositions of these different color dots that when they're close enough together, the eye sees them as one thing when we zoom out a little bit. Here, we're just diving straight into the details because sometimes it's actually easier to control the detail and then gradually, so we're starting, in other words, we're starting close to the screen and then we're zooming out as we go forward. We'll see what all this is good for, so to speak. This morning, I had a little bit of an elaborate presentation on the background for this, and that will emerge gradually as we go forward. Right now, as I said, I'm just interested in doing the nuts and bolts. if you're interested in that little presentation, because it's going to be part of, hopefully, part of that NIAC Scholar Symposium on the 1st of April. The Center for Racial Reconciliation is hosting a whole day of presentations by faculty and hopefully students. That was my suggestion. I think it's important that the students also make contributions to these events. And I'm going to compare these chords here, which are heavily altered. You can see all of a sudden we get flats and sharps in the same kind of chord. So you can see that they're very heavily altered. And at various points in music history, that's something that Professor Carlos will explore in some more detail, because that's sort of his end of the bargain, as it were. At various points where things have changed, people have used, or composers have used in their music to reflect this changing set of circumstances, chord structures that are heavily altered compared to what the ear really expects. And the outcome, we're not going to hear this today because, as I said, nuts and bolts today. And, you know, for a little bit, we'll do a few exercises where you just get to wet your teeth on the, wet your feet, whatever, on the nuts and bolts of this. But at various points, say, for instance, at the time right after the French Revolution, a whole set of underlying expectations and circumstances for how life unfolded were changed dramatically, and the music reflects that. A composer who lived around that time is Ludwig van Beethoven, and he made use of this procedure here, as we will hear later on, a great deal. And the same was actually the same case was the music of John Coltrane, who lived in the 1950s at the height of the civil rights movement, and everything in society was called into question. And the whole idea and the direction of society and man's place within it, and particularly the artist's place within it, started to shift, started to change, and questions were being asked and outcomes were uncertain. And in fact, John Coltrane uses the same kind of harmonic procedure here in his famous composition that we all know today as Giant Steps. I mean, he called it Giant Steps. He can access, if we'll hear this later, he can access both C major and D flat major at the same time, or C minor and D flat minor at the same time. Since these are related by half steps, C major and D flat are a half step apart, we call these chromatic harmonies. You can also see that the chromatic alteration of two steps that are both encircling scale degree 5 are sort of indicative of something that is quite interesting and quite altered. That's just a little preview. We'll figure out what that means in actual fact. Right now, just going to spell out some more chords, and then we'll see where we stand. I'm going to pick a new key. So basically, I'm just going to change the key here, and I'm just going to spell out this new chord. Does somebody care to give me a key? I don't really, it could be any key. Just give me a key.
B flat.
Somebody. B flat. B flat. Okay. So the inner voices are easy because scale degree 1 is B flat. And since we have no sort of real reference here, I might as well write the B flat up here, right? And notice that I stemmed them right away. That means that in this voice here, the tenor voice, nothing goes above that B flat. And for the alto, nothing goes below that. So I make sure that I don't just write them up like this, because now I haven't really indicated if this is a tenor note or if it's a bass note. It could be either, right? This also is certainly in the register of the soprano. So it could be a soprano note until I do this, and then we know, okay, that's the alto. It's a very high alto. It doesn't really matter right now. We're not refining our writing technique, but as opposed to writing with ledger lines, I might as well use that B flat. It's just as good. Now I'm going to find flat 6, and I do that from scale degree 5. So you ask yourself, what is scale degree 5 in the key of B flat? And you know, I just to expedite that, I can answer that question myself by saying in B flat, scale degree 5 is F. That shouldn't be a problem. If you have a problem figuring this stuff out, just write up your B flat major scale. Say whole step, right? Whole step and half step. And then the whole step, that's the one that separates the two scale portions, the two tetrachords. And there's your answer right there. By doing this very, very simple calculation, you can all find scale degree 5 in any key, because you can start from any note here and just go forward whole, whole, half, then separate the two tetrachords. The tetrachord is here, and the next tetrachord, if I can go up again, so whole, whole, and then half. There's my entire scale here, right? Here's the next tetrachord. So, and here's the one that separates it. It's just a very handy way of writing it up and also teaching it. Just remember this, that we're also sort of training our teaching chops, right? Because this is theory 4 or LLM 4. And in one semester, we're going to let you out, either to go to grad school or to go out and teach, or whatever you do with your degree, or a combination of all of the above. You know, perform, teach, go to grad school, hold down a job in a church, whatever. There are many possibilities here. So flat 6 would obviously be the next letter name up. But it's only going to be a half step because it's flat 6, right? This one here. So it's not going to be G, because that's regular 6, if you like. So it's going to be G flat. Capiche?
Yeah.
Give me a thumbs up.
Yes, Professor.
Good. Yeah. Quite easy, right? So that's flat 6. I'm now going to go down a half step from F. And the next letter name down from F is some type of E, and I just have to check, is that a half step? And yes, it is. So it's E natural, right? And we should really be able, I mean, we should point that out, that it's E natural, because the E we expect in the key of B flat. B flat major, B flat minor, doesn't really matter, it's the same thing, would be an E flat. So we have to indicate that this scale degree 4, has been raised. And here we see immediately that it's not necessarily spelled with a sharp. We just call it sharp 4 because it means raised 4. Why do we call it sharp 4? Because it rolls off the tongue more easily than saying raised 4. And especially with the flat 6, in this case it is spelled with a flat, so that's very convenient. But it simply just means lowered 6th. And that's really, you know, that's very difficult to say, especially for foreigners such as myself. So flat 6 is just a way of saying it, but remember that it's not necessarily spelled with a flat. In this key it is, but here we see, as in many, many, many other keys, especially flat keys, that some of these scale degrees will be spelled just by either removing a sharp, and that has lowered that note, or removing a flat, which means that it has raised that note. So far, so good?
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, Professor.
Cool. Very good. This flies up very, very easily. I'm proud of you. This, by the way, is considered the hardest aspect of, or one of the hardest aspects of total theory. I must admit, I don't really understand that. I think sometimes people are making it more difficult than it needs to be. And there can be a number of reasons for that. I'm not really going to go into that discussion. But it proves, I mean, I've done this, as you know, for a number of years in this school and in other places too. And if you explain it carefully, if you break it down in a good way, and you have a logical way of sort of figuring it out, it proves to be not very difficult. So total theory is not going to be much more difficult than this. Go figure, right? I mean, there's a lot more, many more aspects to it when we're starting writing progressions using these chords. We have to have more skills, but spelling out these augmented sixth chords, that proved to be not very such a big deal, actually. Okay, take another key.
B.
B, as opposed to B flat. So B major or B minor, it doesn't really matter because B is going to be here and B is going to be here. So you see that it's very, very similar. It's just not flat, but it's B natural, yeah? And here we have to know one thing, that in B major, scale degree 5, so in B major or B minor, scale degree 5 is what? We couldn't work it out by saying, okay, I start from B, I go a whole step up. Yeah, so sharp, good, very good. And I go another whole step up, and I'll very quickly see that I have an half step, right? And we'll very, very quickly see that we have a lot of sharps in this key. We sort of knew that, right? Whole step up from E is F sharp, and here's our scale degree 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So F sharp is scale degree 5. Just hang on to that thought for a second. Now flat 6 will be a half step up from F, and it's going to be spelled obviously with the next letter name up, and that will be G natural. That's a half step up from F sharp. So that's going to be in our bass. I can put it here, I can also put it down here, but you know, since I've written a B there, so we should, I mean, let's say for the purpose of the homework assignment or some possible later exam, if you write this, I will understand that that means G natural. But the polite thing is to do this. They actually call courtesy naturals, courtesy sharps. Now, just to remind the reader, I mean the musician, that this is the note you in fact mean, because the normal assumption in the key of B major for sure is that the G is sharp, right? If I'd gone one more step up from F sharp, I would have found G sharp. So I need to indicate that it's been lowered. So lowered 6 or flat 6 would be G natural in this key. Easy peasy, right? We just have to remember that it has to be the next letter name up. Okay, now go to sharp 4. So I'm going to go one half step down from F sharp. It's some type of E, I understand that, but the distance between E and F sharp is a whole step because it's 2 half steps, and I got to lower that from here. Is this one here is my regular, so I'm going to lower it here and say it's going to be spelled with E, so that would be E sharp. You understand? It's again and again, you will see that if there is a problem in figuring this stuff out, this is down, of course, right? We understand that, and up would be G. But if there's a problem understanding this, it is usually because the basic music skills are not really solid enough. You will find with your students, and it doesn't really matter what they do, if you teach them voice, if you teach them piano, if you teach them saxophone, if you teach them music theory, if the fundamentals are weak, everything else that you build on top of that will not be strong. It will simply not hold up. But we have to understand that between E and F is a half step, yeah? We know that. And that means that if I raise this one, I must also raise this one to retain that half step. So that means that the sharp 4, in this case, is an E sharp. Cool?
Yes.
Good. Does anyone find this difficult? I mean, I know it looks easy when I do it, but it is easy. And very soon, when you have a little bit more experience with this stuff, you'll probably find that, this is not too bad. I just have to keep my thoughts straight. But every single calculation that I'm doing here is actually in and of itself quite easy. The thing of keeping focus and keeping your mind or your brain on track, what we call focus, that's really what it means, the ability to concentrate. You have to know what to concentrate on. That's the whole key with concentration, that you have to be able to ask yourself the next question. What is a half step down from F sharp, for instance? Or what is a half step down from F? Or from C, what is a half step down from C? It's B. What is a half step down from C sharp then? It would be B sharp. We have to have the confidence to say it must be that, because I can figure this out and then do it. That's an Italian augmented sixth chord in the key of B. B minor, B major, same deal. It doesn't matter. Let's do one more and then we'll move on to the French augmented sixth chord. Because frankly, I don't really need 2.5 hours to explain this. I think altogether, it's better to have a really, really concise presentation. This is not even as concise as I would like it. You know, I'm yapping away and I'm talking about Coltrane and Beethoven and all that. I mean, if it was up to me, it would just be about the nuts and bolts, right? But I feel I have an obligation to sort of tell you that this is not just about nuts and bolts. It's really about the art, how the art is what it says, right? I mean, what it is reflective of and how it says it. It's always about how to do things. We can all come up with a great idea of you know, how to create $1 billion company, but how to do it, that's the key here. You know, you have to have an idea and then be able to implement it on all levels. That's the difference between those who actually create $1 million companies and those of us who don't, who would like to maybe, but I haven't quite figured out the how. I mean, I just want to play the guitar, but that's me. That's where I'm sort of stuck, really. Okay, somebody else give me a key. Give me a really difficult key.
F sharp.
F sharp. Piece of cake. Okay. I'm going to write, the wrong way here. I caught myself in a little mistake. So F sharp, F sharp. These fly out very easy because we can just see the scale degree one. We just have to hang on to that, yeah? So next question, what is scale degree 5? In the key of F sharp, what is scale degree 5?
C sharp.
C sharp,
Or,
very good. Yep, because if in F natural, it's C natural, which it is, and most people know that, then F sharp is no more difficult. It's just C sharp. Everything's just with a sharp. So now, now that we have this in place, we can very quickly navigate where flat 6 is. Flat 6 is a half step up from C sharp, which is D natural, right? And we should really indicate that. So that will be here and indicated with a natural sign because the D that we expect in the key of F sharp would be a D sharp. Half step down from C sharp. And here's something that if you paid attention just a few seconds ago, I said exactly what you need to know. What is the half step down from C sharp?
B sharp.
Perfect. Perfect. Use your logic. I know it's the same as C natural, but that's spelled the wrong way. You'll have the right chord actually, right? But it's just spelled the wrong way. So here's your Italian augmented sixth chord in the key of F sharp, typically F sharp minor, but it can be used also in F sharp major. It doesn't really make a difference. In this school, we very, very, very often compare what is called secondary modal mixture, and that means F sharp minor and F sharp major give us a lot of information that is used in one particular style of music. I mean, it shares that with a whole bunch of other repertoire items, but in gospel music in particular, you will see the secondary modal mixture. The primary modal mixture would be between F sharp minor and A major because they share the same key signature. So therefore, they play out of the same scale, and that's not such an interesting modal mixture because they're really, you know, you'll find the same notes basically. You'll just find a different emphasis. So in F sharp major and in F sharp minor, you'll find quite a lot of difference because you can see that one has, F sharp minor has 3 sharps and F sharp major has 6 sharps. So you can see that there's a difference there of 3 different notes that will really color all the chords. This is one such chord that you are importing from the major mode into the minor mode, just speaking of this one here. That one is a little more complex because it actually plays out the frigid scale, but that's that's for another good day. I don't want to complicate it too much because right now we're on a roll. We found that this is easy to do. We just have to stick to our logic that a half step up from whatever that is has to be spelled with the next letter name and just be a half step away from this one. So if we can find this, and all of you can flawlessly write any major scale, and you will get scale degree 5 right there. It's going to be the same in major and minor. Scale degree 5 is the same. And use your logic. Going a half step down, it will have to be spelled with the letter name right before C in the alphabet, and then make sure that that one is a half step away from 5. Okay, this is a piece of cake, right? I'm now going to change the metrics just a little bit, and I'm going to call this the French augmented 6 chord. French 6+, and I'm going to just change one of these notes here, and we'll see later on. You will get to see why, how these procedures came about. The same way as in most other harmonic procedures, that it was a melodic inflection that was subsumed into the chord itself, and therefore we think it's a different chord, but it really isn't. The only difference is that we have scale degree 2 now in one of the inner voices. It could be in the tenor. I've just chosen the alto. Why not? You know, same thing. Let's just do it C, just to make sure that this is not difficult. So we can immediately plug in our C, because that's still scale degree 1. Scale degree 2 would be a whole step up from C, wouldn't it? And again, it's the same in major and minor. The first step in any major or minor scale would be a whole step. So therefore, a whole step up from scale degree 1 would be D. Easy peasy. It is that simple. It really is. Flat 6 in the key of C. So C, scale degree 5 is G, as we all know. Half step up would be A flat. Half step down would be F sharp. There's your 2 altered scale degrees. So this one here, whoops, would be A flat. I know it's a little messy writing here, but I think you get the point, though, that this is on the line, right? It's a line note. And F sharp, just remember what's up and down. This is 6, right? So if this is 5, then up is 6, flat 6, and down would be sharp 4. Just remember that. It's just for your own sort of orientation, because sometimes, oh, this one here, that must be the high note then. And it could be. Actually, in real music, this can be flipped upside down or inside out, whatever. But just for learning it, this is the most sort of schematic way of understanding it. Here's your French augmented 6 chord in the key of C. C minor, C major, same difference. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
that's fine.
Very good. It's abbreviated just FR for French. Why they're called Italian, French, and German augmented 6 chords and all that, I don't know, and frankly, nobody knows. And if they tell you that they do, they're full of prunes, because it's just a convention. The proof of that, by the way, is that what we call in America, we call the Swiss for Switzerland, Swiss augmented 6 chord. Some people, especially in England, they call that the English augmented 6 chord. I don't know why that is, but it's just the Brits are a little bit funny, aren't they? Okay, so give me another key here. Give me a really bad key, you know, something with tons of flats and whatnot. Like D flat.
D flat.
How about D flat? How about that? You know, with 5 flats, right? I mean, so our first navigation point is to say scale degree 5. And I mean, like this would be easy, right? That would be very easy, because D, E, F, G, A. And then if it's D flat, it'll just be A flat. So now it's easy again. There are no difficult keys. All that is complete rubbish. Just don't believe people if they tell you that, oh, you know, D flat is very difficult or something like that. It's not, you know, it's the same thing. Okay, Half step up from A flat would be flat 6. And what is that then? What is a half step up from A flat? We understand that it's A, right? There'll be a half step up from A flat, but we can't spell it with an A because that's not flat 6. That will be raised 5 then. There'll be sharp 5, which is also a good note. And there are many harmonic procedures that use that note as the augmented sort of dominant typically, as a 7th chord with a raised 5th. But we have to spell it. We understand that it's the same key. We understand that here's A flat, yeah? Here's A flat. We understand that it's this note here. That will be a half step up from that one. But we can't spell it with A because that's still 5, right? So we have to spell it with B because that's the next letter name up. What procedure will give the B the same pitch as the A?
E double flat.
Yep. And there is no other sign than just the double flat. If you have a double sharp, we understand that sharp, that's an X, right? But there is no sign. I can't explain why that is. It just is. We just have to accept that. So B double flat would be my scale would be flat 6. Did I put in? I didn't put in the D flat. I can do that. And so can you. It's not difficult. And so B double flat, right? I'm going to put it down here. I could have put it up here, but I'm going to put it down here. Since there's no context, meaning that there's no before or after, we're sort of more free to just spell these chords, right? They don't even have to be voiced in a particular way. We're just concentrating on spelling them right now. Okay, what is a half step down? Yeah, okay, go. I think somebody's microphone is, okay. Thumbs up. Nova, your microphone is open. Do you want to say something?
Just looking at it, it's just like confusing, but I think that I'm getting it. So thank you.
You're welcome. The important thing to do, if you feel that it's confusing, try to see if you can formulate a question. I bet you it's the B double sharp, double flat, right? That seems a little confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, and that you're not alone by that. There is a certain intimidation factor with using double flats and double sharps. And very, very quickly, I think we have to disabuse ourselves of the fact that there's certain keys that are difficult and certain keys that are easy. They're all easy, really. We have to start with saying, I can figure this out. You know, I know it has to be that pitch, but I also know I can't spell it with any kind of A, so I have to go to this one here. What brings this pitch down 2 half steps? This is 1 half step, and here's another one. So that's the same. So here, B to B flat, and then B flat to B double flat. It's simply just a logical way, but I understand that confidence is part of this. You know, we are reluctant very often to write E sharps and F flats, and in this case B double flat. We just have to get over that. You know, and just use our logic, because that's you know, that's the best tool we have very often. It doesn't really matter if we can recite things in a textbook, for instance. If we really don't know how to apply it, it doesn't really matter. I have to admit that I don't think I've learned very many things from a textbook. I think they can be a good support sometimes. But for me, the understanding has come before anything I could. And then I read it over and over again in the textbook and say, yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it. So there's me more as a support for me as a teacher, saying that's a good way to explain it, but I already understood it. I already understood the topic. And sometimes you just have to go with the fact that I kind of understand it, but I'm not really sure why that's spelled with a B double flat or whatever. Okay, half step down from, so this is 5, right? If we're figuring out sharp 4, we're going a half step down from A flat, and that will be the next letter name down. You can use this. I'm going to be lazy and say, here's A, right? Or A flat, here's A flat. Half step down would be the next white note down from the black note, or black key. Half step up would be that, right? We understand that from a white key to a black key, or vice versa, from a black key to a white key is a half step. So if we're starting on A flat, then a half step down would be G. And that's the note we're going to put up here, right? So G natural. Okay, now scale degree 2. This is scale degree 1, yeah? A whole step up from B flat. From D flat is what? D flat plus 1. What is a whole step up from D flat?
C.
Nope. D, as in, it's the alphabet, right? A, B, C. It would be some type of E, right?
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, but we all make that mistake, right? But if it had been D, then this is easy, right? But because it's D flat, we think that this is more difficult. It isn't, right? So E flat goes in here because that's scale degree 2. And then, typographically, how to sort of place all these flats and sharps. That's something that we will purify as we go along with it. That's not too difficult either, but there's a certain system to it. This is a little messy, but it does the job, right? If in doubt, just use your keyboard. And you don't need to go out and buy a Steinway grand piano or anything like that. You can just draw. You don't even need a board like this with the keys drawn up. This is handy because when I erase it, I don't need to draw them again, right? But you can just draw your own keyboard like that, Now you have that, right? It's the same thing. And now you can figure out where the half steps and whole steps are. So here's D flat, right? D flat. And I go 2 half steps up. That will be 1 half step, and that will be another half step, and that's E flat. This is why we are doing it in keyboard class as well. You see, the idea is that the keyboard teacher, currently Professor Margaret, is going to follow up with you on just spelling out these chords. We're not really resolving them or doing anything with them other than spelling them out on the keyboard, because that's a tremendous, tremendous reinforcement. But frankly, this is just as good. You don't really need the sound either. You can sort of, you can feel your way, you can see your way. The great thing about the piano or the keyboard layout is that you can see the half steps. You can see that if 2 white keys are next to each other, that's a half step. Otherwise, these are half steps, right? And 2 halves make a whole. That means half step, another half step. These 2 are whole steps. Very simple. Let's do a couple more of the French or minor 6 chord. As you can see, the only thing that's changed from the Italian is the replacement of one of the scale degree 1s with scale degree 2. Scale degree 2, both in major and minor, is a whole step. So you simply just have to say, wherever you start here, go 2 half steps up, if you like. All right, D flat, it doesn't get much worse than that. D flat minor is a wicked key, isn't it? Okay, so give me another key. How about a sharp key of sorts? Let's do A, yeah? That's a sharp key. So this one is easy. Scale degree 1 is A. Scale degree 2 is also easy because it's a whole step up from A, which is B. So there you have it. These 2 sort of write themselves. And now we have to go to scale degree 5 in the key of A. So this is like the alphabet. So there's always some silver lining of any key, and in this case, it's the start of the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, E. I know it's an F sharp. It doesn't really, it matters not one whit at all. So scale degree 5, we're in the key of A, yeah? Scale degree 5 is E. Let's go a half step up from E to find flat 6. What is the half step up from E?
F.
Yep, F natural. Don't write F flat, because F flat is the same, you can see here, F flat will be the same sound as E. So you simply, again, you have to stick to your logic. Flat 6 in the key of A is F natural. Now let's go a half step down to find sharp 4. What is that? Here's E. What is a half step down? That's that one here.
D sharp. Oh.
D sharp, very good. Cool. Okay, I don't think you'll have a problem with this, right? Because the homework assignment, I think there's like 8 examples in various, the French augmented 6 chord and the Italian augmented 6 chord, and they're in all the keys, but it's the same process over and over again. Just spell them out. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. So if you're good with that, because you also remember that last week you got an extra gig because Professor Carlos was still sick. He's still sick, by the way. I don't know who was there in my class last week, but Carlos has COVID-19, and he's been sick for almost 3 weeks now. He will definitely make it, but he hasn't been well. It's something that really kicks your rear. His entire in-law family, one of them got it, probably the dad, his in-law, his father-in-law, and he's 75. He went to hospital for a week, came home with oxygen supply, and had to go in again because he got worse and he couldn't shift it. But apparently he's doing better, but it's a long road. So if a 35-year-old guy who's a runner and who's a boxer and lives healthily and is healthy, etc., if he can go down for 3 weeks with a temperature of 102.5, then we begin to understand why people who have underlying conditions or little aging or whatever, they have a hard time surviving this. Just be super careful. Keep Professor Carlos in your prayers, and we hope the best for him. But he should be back hopefully by next week, right? Or hopefully actually this week. I think with a bit of good luck, you should be getting lessons from him Wednesday and Thursday. I mean Wednesday for the LLM2 crowd, and in your case it's Thursday, I guess. Okay, but this sits, I think, pretty well. Any questions? Anything we should go through?
No, not really.
We okay?
Yes,
I think so.
Okay.
thank you, Professor.
Yeah, you're welcome. So download the assignment, read the instructions, is basically what I said here, but you have it in print now, and review this morning's class and this one here if you need to. They'll be uploaded as soon as we get them back from the Zoom company. And you should be on your way. This shouldn't cause you too many problems. If you, again, as ever, if you need a little support and if you get stuck, just write out what you have and text me. And you know me well enough that pretty much round the clock I'll be as available as I can, and to answer your questions. And if you just want to say, hey, I'm stuck with this one here in G minor, whatever, can you help me out? Or this is what I have already. Am I doing it right? Don't think that if you snap a picture of something that is not absolutely 100% correct, that I'm going to go into my little grading book and say -0.5 grade point. That's just not the way my brain works. I know that the administration probably want my brain to work that way, but it just doesn't. So if they want somebody like that, they're going to find someone else. Because I'm all about you guys learning this stuff. It doesn't get much harder than this, believe it or not, because I don't think this is terribly hard, actually. I know it's very often made to feel hard, and I can't really figure out. I've spent the last 42 years, as a professional musician, trying to figure out why some people make it hard, and I still can't find a good enough reason for it. I just think it's because they really don't know what they're doing, frankly. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this, and just hand in your homework assignment sometime before next time we meet next Tuesday. Okay?
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Have a good night.
Have a great night and have a good week. Enjoy the weekend. Hopefully we won't get too much snow this week.
Wow.
But with Zoom, does it matter? It doesn't matter. I have to admit, I really love this, actually. I think it's much more efficient because, a few people are a little bit late or whatever, but it's like we're talking about minutes now. In the olden days, people could be 45 minutes late because they had to take some train from Long Island, and somewhere along the way they got stuck, or some idiot boarded the train and threatened to kill everyone or whatever. I mean, it's New York, right? I ride the subway every day, and right now it's just really remarkable because I think 99% of people behave really well. I think most people know that this is serious. You have to be careful. You have to be careful. You'll be an idiot not to. And then you have these guys, typically guys, right, whose life is already in the toilet, right, and they have nothing to lose, it seems. And they come in, spitting at people, and it's like, But I don't know. I've been here 32 years, so I should be used to it by now. All right, I'll leave you on that positive note. I'm going to leave you with your homework assignment, and I'll see you later. All right.
Good night.
Love you all.
Love you.
Love you as well.
Love you.